Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Rutherford County Library System Board meeting for September to order. Welcome. Our first item on our agenda is welcoming new members and special guests. I don't think we have any new members this month. So we'll move to public comments. We have 5 requests tonight for public comments. A couple of housekeeping rules that we've talked about in the past. You'll be able to come up and speak here at the podium. There's a timer here on the podium. You'll be allowed your 3 minutes. When the 3 minutes expires, please finish the sentence you're in, and then in your statements. During the entire meeting tonight, we will not allow any public outside public comments, clapping, booing, any outbursts of any kind. If that happens, we will ask that you leave the press. On those public comments, we had one person that stated they would like to speak about a specific agenda item. There were 4 others that just had general comments. Hannah Faulkner, Trey Faulkner, Mariah Phillips, and Carrie Lambert. Did you want to speak on specific agenda items or just the general comments? Any of those 4 folks?
I'm Mariah Phillips. I want to speak on Annie Books.
Okay, so general comments. All right, so the general comments will be at the end. So right now we'll do just Talitha Cox. If you would come up. Please state your name, address, or at least city, and you can you don't want to face any face that. And if you're a current library partner.
Okay, Rutherford County Library Card, and I am from Rutherford.
Perfect, thank you.
I would like to discuss the book Sex is a Funny Word. It's a second book in a trilogy teaching sex to children. The first book is called What Makes a Baby for 2 to 5-year-olds. Some of the things discussed in this book are sperm and eggs can be in different bodies, and they're drawn in blobs, and confuses children at that age. The Sex is a Funny Word is the second book that is more suggestive by pictures of little girls dreaming about being male all-star athletes, and a series of pictures of a little girl masturbating in a bathtub, and a child dressed as a cat in a section that reads, quote, "When we are born, a doctor or midwife calls us a boy or girl because of what we look like on the outside. The chosen word or label, usually boy or girl, or male or female, to describe our bodies, but that's based on our outsides, our cover, and who we think we are. What about our whole body inside and out? What about what we think we are?" End of quote. The book doesn't say you can or should do these Why are the pictures showing the kids doing them in the book targeted to children 7 years old? Even in the third book, you know sex for 10 years old. There's a cartoon of people in bed together. In the book, it says, quote, when we are learning about sex, we can't get the answers from someone else because those who are someone else's, those are someone else's answers. We have to figure things out for ourselves, but we don't do it alone. We learn through experiences with others, people, and other ideas. That's where this book, this class comes from. It's not a place where you'll get all the answers because we all need to find out our own answers, end of quote. Kids are already confused about life. This book doesn't really answer their questions because it more gives them questions about their sexuality. When I was a little girl, I was a tomboy, and that's okay. I like bugs, climbing trees, working on cars. Now, if you're a little girl and you're a tomboy, people will tell you you might be a little boy. Not that it's okay to be a little girl. It's like that you like to do boy things. I know this is a hard book to make a decision on, and I leave it in your hands.
Thank you. All right, number 4 for our agenda tonight is review and approval of our minutes from our August meeting. All of you have those in your packets. If you would, please review those. Let me know if there's any additions or corrections. And if not, I'll entertain a motion when you're ready. Motion to approve the minutes as presented. We have a second. Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion is approved and the minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. I don't believe we have any this month, right? So we'll move into reports for committees of the board. I think all of you guys have microphones there by you, so make sure to pick that up. First item is budget and finance.
Mr. Chairman, the financials are included in your packet.
Sorry, you're down with your mics.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the packet is the financials for July 1st through August 31st. And I would like to make a motion that we accept the financial statements, but we will entertain any questions as well.
We have a motion to accept the financial statements in the packet. Any second or any questions? Second from Sean Wright. Any comments, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Approved. Anything else, Tim? Is that it? All right. Next committee would be bylaws and policies. Mr. Wright.
Yes, we need to look at the way the committee meetings are held. Since there are open meetings, we need to have a public comment section and things like that. We had just briefly spoke about it at the bylaws committee prior, but we need to just get the opinion of the whole library board. Is anybody okay with, or does anybody have any objection with putting the same open meeting rules in for the committee meetings that we have with the full library board? 5 speakers, 3 minutes apiece, total of 15 minutes on action items before the meeting starts. And then we have people that want to comment on non-action items, same thing, 15 minutes, 3 minutes apiece at the end of the meeting.
I've got a question. I don't think that we have to have the public comment for general stuff. At the state law requires public comment for items on agenda.
That's correct.
So I don't know if all the committees, it would be necessary to have the public comment for general comments. It might be good just to limit that to items that are actually on the agenda. So that would be my suggestion.
And so we can have our committee meetings on Zoom, right? Not anymore? Okay.
there has been some discussion, I don't know that, Paul, from the board, Rita and I discussed it. There was some discussions about potentially moving committee meetings to this forum here, instead of having separate meetings, for each individual committee, we would just have those committees, basically present to the board and discuss at the same time, all in the same area, in the same board meeting. Mostly because, like our last one, committee can have a meeting and come up with a plan, and then come to the board meeting, and there's 14 changes, right? So kind of wasted their time because they went down a whole train of thought path that the whole board didn't really understand or agree with, right? So that's part of the process that we discussed that might be better, rather than having a separate meeting for each committee, a separate publicized meeting, a separate public hearing, all of that. We could do it all at this meeting. Obviously, that would add some time to this meeting occasionally, but I don't know that it would add as much as coming to a separate committee meeting would add. So that's another idea for how we handle those. To your point, it doesn't really affect everything you're doing because these would still be all met by not having this board meeting. But that's one of the options that we're kicking around. Instead of having separate committee meetings, we have a board meeting with committee meetings inside.
Mr. Chairman, I would also favor that opinion because the board is downsized from what it was. I know from when I first started. So by the time we have a committee with 3 to 5 people on it, that it may be just as productive to go ahead and do it in this public setting. And then we've met all the requirements that we have to. We still have our committee chairmen that could run that portion of the meeting if it be, and then we could just settle everything at that one point.
There's one thing. The committee meetings can be very simple and very complicated. And I say this because we are now in the process of updating our bylaws and policies also. And having stepped through it the last time when the bylaws and policies, the committee 2 to 2.5 years ago, there were sometimes 2-hour meetings outside of the board meetings working on those things. Now, I'm not sure if this much will be that in depth, but there are times when we have to kind of throw out ideas. And it might, in place of us staying here for maybe 3 or 4 hours on the whole thing, and I've seen the recommendations of the bylaws and policy committee come in. They were accepted with almost no changes. I've seen minor changes, and then on occasion, I think it was earlier this year on the code of conduct policy that there were major changes. So that's why I say this is kind of a new frontier for us. We were happy to have the committees in such a public way with the public notice and all of that. That is the state law. I have nothing against it, but trying to kind of, right now, since we're not sure what's going on, trying to get like a one idea fits all to it, when it could change up, just like on budget and finance. When the budget committee back in January meets on the budget, that's normally probably about a 2-hour meeting. So I'm just saying, let's kind of think about this thoroughly and be able to kind of adapt to the needs.
Yeah, and there's obviously some different ideas that we can do there. One thing we can do is we could attempt, we could basically make it open for the committee chairman's choice. You know, if we think this is going to be a simple process or simple review, it's not an overhaul, then maybe getting on the agenda and presenting it here one time and being done is the right answer. But to your point, if we're doing budgets or we're doing major overhaul of the policy, then it may be best to have separate meetings and prepare a little bit before this. So that's what I think would make sense, to leave it up to the committee chairman. And if the chairman determines that an outside meeting is required, and we'll have to coordinate with Rita, make sure it's a publicly announced meeting, make sure there's time to make sure we're meeting these requirements that Sean's laid out for us. But I think, I agree with you, Raleigh. I think one size doesn't fit all. There will be cases, I remember 2.5 years ago, I actually brought it up to Rita when she mentioned this, was when we went through those policies and bylaws, it was painful. It was very long at times, and even we had a couple hour board meetings even after it went through. So well taken, and unless somebody else has a different suggestion, I think that leaving it up to the chairman to choose is probably the best route. And encourage you, if we can get it in the board meeting, it's gonna have 30 minutes, 20 minutes, it's gonna take hours. And we always have the flexibility. If we bring it up in the board meeting and the conversation goes down a rabbit hole and it looks like it's gonna be a long discussion, then we can end the discussion and say, let's take this to a breakout session and schedule a committee, right? It doesn't have to be, once you get there, then that's all you can do. So that, we'll discuss that, maybe put some time limits on the conversation. If we start pressing more than 15 or 20 minutes on the discussion, then we can see about breaking it out or something to try to keep the meeting manageable. Okay, so Sean, on your items, do we need a vote for those, or?
No, we just need the direction, and the bylaws committee will meet with that next section, and we'll put a public notice out.
I think that makes perfect sense, and again, I would encourage all committee chairmen to use this forum to meet the needs, and let's do that just to be respectful of everybody's time if we can. Good, anything else, Mr. Wright?
No, sir, thank you very much.
All right, we have, next item is development acquisition, Bill Keating.
Nothing to report at this time.
Bill, facilities and maintenance, Roddy Holt.
Nothing.
That's probably a first in about 6 or 7 months. So that's good. Nominating committee is Mr. Flowers. Mr. Flowers has resigned effective September 15th. All right, so he has resigned from the board. He was a county appointee, so we'll be elected the county and giving a replacement. And I have not named a committee chairman replacement yet and had that conversation. So obviously the board is full. The only nomination is his replacement, so we will move down that path. Otherwise, I don't think the nominating committee had anything other items tonight. Personnel committee, Tim?
No report.
Strategic planning, Corey?
No report.
Ad hoc committee?
No report.
All right, reports from libraries and organizations, staff, if you would, come up and face the audience. You don't need to look at me. You can if you want, but I can hear you. So first we have Murfreesboro. We go with line.
Good evening. Glad to be here with my new Limeball hat on. I really don't have anything else to report than what's on my August report. I did speak with the maintenance. We do have a maintenance thing, but thanks to Mr. Holden, that's being taken care of, and we're going to get the compressor scheduled in the coming weeks. So that's all I have.
MGO. Guess we did have a new face, I'm sorry.
I don't really have anything to add to the report other than I'm excited to be here and serving MGL as the new supervisor. If y'all have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Tech, technology engagements.
Sorry, well, we have a little bit for you here. I did send an email out to the Facilities and Maintenance Committee, but I wanted to bring everything to the board because I will have to ask at the end of the year to take monies out of the fund balance account to pay for a plumbing situation. So I will tell you just what happened. I got an email, a mailing from the Murfreesboro Water Department saying you've got a leak. You've got a leak in your backflow prevention device. And they gave me a month to take care of it. So I contacted a half dozen different plumbers, of which that had the correct certification for that kind of device, and finally got several folks. And they talked to someone who was not involved in any of this plumbers, and this person suggested that I didn't get it rebuilt, but rather replaced, because something was frozen. You can rebuild the guts, but you can't necessarily fit it back inside. So I could spend $650 and it still wouldn't fit. Or I could spend $1,000 to $1,200 and get the whole thing replaced. All this happened between board meetings. So I let rest of the committee, talked to Rita, and we just made it so. It got replaced, last Tuesday. And they were coming out, the Lucasberry water is coming out on Thursday to check it's not. So my big query is, may I take these funds, if necessary, at the end of the fiscal year, since I do not have funds, since there was a clerical error in my budget. It came to $1,250. I do have $17,272 in that fund balance, and of course I can take it down to $8,636. So I guess that's an action. Maybe we're not for the moment, but certainly at the end of the year.
If there's nothing, I'll make a motion to approve, to allow the tech, if needed, to take the funds, to take the $1,250 out of the, end of the year fund balance, if needed, for the repair, for the plumbing, repair for the backflow preventer.
Second. Right, we have a motion and a second to approve the funds from the reserve, right? Reserves for the backflow preventer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Approved.
And I have nothing more. Is there any questions, anything in the report?
Very much. Let's see, let's check. Bookmobile. All right, the HRC. Friends of Longmont Library. Well, yes.
I have just one item to add to the report that you received, and that is this past Saturday, the 16th, we, Friends of Linebaugh, had a book sale. September has just been a bumper harvest of donations, and we were knee-deep in our bookstore with books. And so we had a $5 a bag sale for our stock. And I guess many of you are familiar with how that works. You get a quota bag, fill it up with as many books as you can cram in there without breaking the bag, for $5. But we did exceedingly well. From 9 until 1, we were busy straight through. And we ended up, I think, coming close to $1,000 in sales. Now that's both the $5 a bag, and we had our bookstore. You know, we had a bookstore on the first floor of Linebaugh since February. And that's also including about, I don't know, close to $300 in books at our bookstore. And you gotta buy some books, because it's $2 for a hardback and $1 for a paperback. So we moved a lot of books, and we are so proud to have that money that we can put back into the free libraries that we are sponsored with. And that brings me to just a statement of how happy we are to be able now to work with Mindy at Linebaugh and Kristen at Myrtle Landlord, and we look forward to an enjoyable and mutually beneficial relationship.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Smyrna Library. I know Ginger's out tonight. Anybody? All right, so you should have her information in your packet. She's not here tonight. I also don't see anyone from Smyrna Friends. So if you've got any questions or any comments, I encourage you directly with Ginger or Rita. Next is Eagle. We have the Eagle Library. We'll also cover the links.
Good evening. The only thing that I'm going to highlight on my report is we again went over 3,000 checkouts for the month of August. Matter of fact, we were 3,208. So it's on a roll. Okay, I do have a request for the board. The vinyl baseboard, the slat walls, and the air deflector that I had put into the library after all the painting, everything was done, those have all been, have come in, and the vinyl baseboard is up, the air deflector is up, and the slat walls need to be painted and installed as well. But what I would like to request is the board give me permission to use some money in my fund balance at the end of the fiscal year if I need to. I'm also purchasing a new bookshelf and a new printer stand that will go up in the at the front circulation desk, removing 4 pieces of odd and in furniture that's been there forever. So we're just trying to.
So what dollar you said authorized you to use some money from the fund balance? What amount are you anticipating?
Oh, it's $863.
I'd like to make that motion to allow not to exceed $900 to be allowed to use for the purposes that she mentioned.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion by Cody and second by Corey, for, fund balance not to exceed $900 for repairs, as we mentioned.
I second that too.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you so much. And that, I think that will do it for my report. For the Friends, they are getting ready for their big annual book sale. The Fall Festival in Beaverville is this Saturday from 9 to 3. So if you have nothing to do this Saturday, come on down. I think the weather's going to be beautiful and enjoy yourself. And that's all I have. Anyone have any questions? All right, thank you.
Last item, I think, no, we got 2, sorry. Rutherford County System Director, Rita.
I just want to highlight a few things. We are working on the juvenile, young adult, and adult cards. Should have them set up and ready to go by the October board meeting. We ended up making the decision, the management team, to create all new cards so that they will be readily distinguishable. So there will be one for juvenile, one for young adult, and one for adult. So we're working on the start clamping and all of that stuff that has to go into that. I do want to thank Phil and Dina for going to the trustee workshop and hope they found it to be very beneficial. That helps us on our grants. And the only other thing I wanted to do, well, not the only other thing, but I wanted to highlight, and I know one person is here, I won't make her stand up, but I just wanted to spotlight Susan Todd and Crystal Johnson, both are catalogers for the system. Susan has been with us now for 30 years. So I think that's well-deserved recognition there. So thank you, Susan. And Crystal has been, she's a part-time, Susan is full-time, but Crystal is a part-time cataloger and has been with us for 5 years. And so I just want to thank them for their service to the system and to the community, because they work very hard behind the scenes, and I think everybody appreciates. Those are those people you don't ever see and don't really know what they do, but they do a lot. Yeah, Susan, would you stand, please? Is Crystal here? Started with us over at Lineball, right? So she's been with us a long time, so that's all I have. Anybody got questions for me on the system? Go ahead and get the
Foundation as well?
They haven't met yet. They will meet in October. So I'll have a report at our October meeting, the week the third Wednesday in October. They are working on their fundraiser for 2024, usually it'll be in April or May, and potentially another one in the fall. So any questions on foundation? Okay.
River,
Hello, good evening. I do want to thank Dana and Phil for
time of over 10 hours, so I have his certificate and their certificate. And then I also have, and it's another lady member, a recognition, a certification of recognition for Carol Gaddis for retirement, and I will be handing both of these to Rita to send out. I have nothing else to add to my report unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Nate. All right, next on our agenda is our public comments for the general comments. Again, there's a 3-minute timer here that you can see. I'll call you up in no particular order other than the way you listed on my sheet. The first public comment requester we have is Hannah Faulkner. Present. About Trey Faulkner. Gary Lambert. State your name and
good evening. My name is Carrie Lambert. I live in Murfreesboro, and I do have an active library card. My primary concern and the reason I'm here tonight is at the last meeting, the board was proposing retraining staff to ignore their years of education, the American Library Association, and the Library Bill of Rights. I mean, do we want all professionals to dissociate or ignore their national organizations? Do we expect doctors to be retrained to ignore the American Medical Association? The ALA offers guidelines for best practice in librarianship based on nearly 150 years of research and practice in the field. And their Bill of Rights is based on the American Bill of Rights with particular focus on the First Amendment. So I ask, would we even have a real library if it's not aligned with the ALA and their standards? While we might trust our current leadership to not turn our libraries into nothing more than governmental propaganda machines, what happens when the next person takes control? Remember, the board is appointed and therefore not necessarily a true reflection of the community it serves. So do we really want people appointed by who knows who and are not library professionals to decide what information we should and should not have fair and free access to? This is a very dangerous precedent to set here in Rutherford County. Respectfully, and I do mean respectfully, as I'm sure you are all very successful in your fields, how many of you have advanced degrees in library and information sciences? Okay. Given there are term limits, you will not be the board forever. And what happens when you're replaced and this new board that, like most of you, have no training in library and information science, decides to follow the precedent set now by you to start banning all sorts of things? Who knows what they might try to ban next? Bible? I don't know. I think it's best we leave collection decisions to the professionals. Please, think of our future. Let's set a good precedent. I would like to use the quote from our mayor because I think he really says it best. Government shouldn't be involved in censoring or directing what should be seen or not seen. And let me complete his quote so that it's in context, because it was in regards to social media, but in my opinion it is still very relevant. Your right of speech is no different from mine. Elon Musk has been consistent that free speech will be promoted. The prevailing party has no right to determine censorship because one day you will be the one being censored. Setting a bad precedent now endangers the future of our liberty, and I think we can all see that. So let's set a good precedent. One that leaves important decisions regarding our access to information to the professionals that have dedicated their lives to learning how to best serve their community. Never once in all of history have book banners been the good guys. Let's be the good guys.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Next speaker on our agenda is Mariah Phillips. Mr. Phillips, if you'll state where you live, your name, and whether you're library card.
Sure. Mariah Phillips. I'm here in Murfreesboro, and
books at the library. I look back at the archived agendas available online, and until August of 2023, we had not banned a book at the public library, even though the library board review process has existed. Could anybody tell me the last time we banned a book? I can't believe that prior to 2023, there were no books that were as vulgar and shocking as the 4 books we banned last month, or the 2 that we were reviewing at our meeting today. Are you telling me that we were all right with 50 Shades of Grey? In 2012, it was an international bestseller translated into 52 languages, the #1 bestseller of all time. The movies made following the book was also a box office success. But you know who didn't read the book or watch the movies? Me. I found the whole premise to be too sexual, too uncomfortable, too much for my progressive little eyes to watch. So guess what I did? I didn't read the books. I didn't watch the movies. Nor did I ask anyone to ban them on my behalf. I've talked to many of my female friends and male friends who've loved the books, and why should my opinion of those books take away their right to enjoy them? The books that we are looking at banning today are books that may not be for you. Queen Charlotte is another bestseller and in the top 10 shows on Netflix. Next year, people will demand that I cancel my Netflix subscription because that is streaming in my home, and maybe in some of yours. I wish that I was joking, but that is exactly where this type of progress is going. You don't have to read these books. You don't have to let your kids check them out of the library. As a parent, you have the ultimate say over what your kids are exposed to. I kept my kids very sheltered from anything other than VeggieTales, Sesame Street, and Disney movies when they were young. But that was my choice. As leaders of this community, you aren't speaking for your children. You are speaking for every citizen in this community. Every citizen's rights may not be infringed. So I'm going to suggest that the people making this decision really tread carefully. It has not gone unnoticed that there are some themes in the selection of books that are being banned. Books by Black and minority authors, books that tackle homosexual sex, that are even friendly to the LGBTQ community. These are the targets of your books. These same books and books by white authors that are hypersexualized have been sitting on our library shelves for decades. Why all of a sudden are some of these books being targeted? That's something that we need to reflect on. I guarantee the justice system is watching. I do not want Murfreesboro to be once again another embarrassing national headline like we have been over the past several years. So my last comment, if any of you think that taking these books out of the library is going to eliminate homosexuality in Rutherford County, you are mistaken. The queer community has always been here, it will always be here, and now that many have stepped out of the closet, they aren't going back. All you are eliminating is the ability for your children to learn empathy and love.
Ma'am, your time has started, please. Thank you.
And for you to have a relationship with them if they turn out gay. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is our other business, and this is specifically the request for reconsideration. We've had 2 submitted. We'll go by order. Queen Charlotte is the first one. This one has, you should have the reclassification request in your packet, or at least in your email. And I will point out this is an adult fiction book. I don't believe that the decency ordinance specifically affects adult fiction, and this book technically doesn't meet the requirements of the decency ordinance.
I agree. It doesn't affect the decency ordinance in Murfreesboro or the Tennessee state law, so I would say it stays in the library.
I believe the staff recommendation was that no change be made.
So I have a question, and it might be good for you to stay here because I'm going to ask you a couple questions. One is, so you reviewed this book, Rita?
That's correct. I did not read the whole thing. I opened to different sections. One section was the wedding night of Queen Charlotte. Romance is not my thing, so I would not check it out.
So did you see anything that could possibly interpreted as like child pornography or anything like that?
No.
Anything that would be a violation of state law, your knowledge? Okay.
Right?
I've read the entire series. I don't know if there's some issues with that, but a lot of those.
If you could use the mic.
Yeah, I read the entire series. There's nothing objectionable, and then as seeing as it's classified in the adult section.
Since there is no change, I don't believe that we need a motion or a vote on this. We can do a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Motion to accept staff's
Okay, motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting staff's recommendation, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. The second book for reconsideration is Sex is a Funny Word. This book is in the juvenile section, and I think on the 4 page actually says it's 7 to 10. Comments, questions, the staff on this one recommended reclassification to adult, citing that the book was educational in its entirety, and that although the book may not be something that I would want my 7-year-old to pick up and read without my oversight, I can see the benefit, or they can see the benefit of a staff, of a parent when you read this book to help with the conversation. So moving this to adult would allow an adult to check it out, and obviously share with their child if they chose to. But with our new card system and classifying this to adult, it would prevent anyone from under the age of 17 checking it out. Comments?
Cody's an expert on this, but because of the bathtub image in which the child is engaging in the sex act that we can't see privates, does that affect it being relocated to the adult section at all? I mean, I personally don't think it is, but Cody seems to know more about this particular youth depicted images law.
And there's always going to be some level of subjectivity to all of that. I think I will be voting to remove it, to not take the recommendation and to remove it from the library, particularly because it is directly, it's not, at least from my review of it, it is not presented as an educational tool. It's presented as a book that's targeted, its audience is that age. And it have encouragement for masturbation for children. So I would be more comfortable removing it from the library in its totality.
So I'll jump in and say, I think the very first page, it is very clearly an introduction to parents about using the book. And so for that reason, I would say that, and because there is nothing explicit in any of these images, I don't think that it violates the decency ordinance, and it seems reasonable in terms of keeping our collection as broad as we can to appeal to as many in our community as we can. You might not want it for your family, but some people might want it for their family, and it seems reasonable to me to keep it.
So there is no clear legal boundary between a sex act that showed private parts, because that would be under the law. It would fail because even adults should not, according to law, technically see children in a sex act. But you think it does make a difference that even though the child is engaged in it, the privates are covered.
And I think it's also, if a young person were reading it, all it talks about is feeling good. There's nothing explicit about what to do or how to do it, as opposed to last month's meeting, Mr. York.
There was a couple of sections when I reviewed it today. There was a couple of sections that gave me pause if it was my child. But again, I tend to agree that most of them were. There were several places where even in the book it said if you're not comfortable, don't keep reading, or if you got questions, seek an adult or seek someone you trust to answer these questions. And so I thought there was that was the part to me. Some of the other books that we reviewed and chose to remove from the shelves were much more explicit and much more direct about you need to make your own choice, just go do whatever you want to do, what feels good. This one didn't seem to go down that path. It encouraged parent and adult intervention in items where you had questions. And there were, I think, 3, maybe 6 pages, depending on how you look at it, 3 layouts where they talked about what they call the middle parts, specifically talking about body parts. But in all those cases, they were descriptive in this is what the body part is and what it's used for, not how to use it and how you might go find someone to help you. Right? That's kind of how I split it. There were 3 sections that again raised the thought process in my mind. I wouldn't want my child to see this without my permission, but I could see the benefit for some parents and sharing it with their child.
I have a procedural question. Last month, one of the books that we had was published as a children's book, and staff, I think, recommended to remove that one based off its publishing preference. Don't quote me. And this book, we suggested moving it to the adult section. What premise did we decide reclassification versus removal?
Yeah, I think the book you're talking about from last month had specific sections that I think Cody specifically brought up that violated the state law when it came to child pornography. And I think that's the point of Warren's question. Is if this book met the requirement or met the need of the state's rule of being potential child pornography or pornographic in its nature, then even reclassifying it would be wrong. But with the ordinance and with the state law, we have the option of reclassifying. I think this is a perfect example of why that might be good. If the overall, there's also language that says that the overall is deemed education. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a textbook, but if it generally is educational, it's presentation, and that's also being out with the other reason I thought reclassification makes sense. But again, everybody has an opinion, right? And that's why we do. So Cody,
So yeah. I'm looking at Tennessee Code annotated 39-17-1003, offensive sexual exploitation of a minor. Part A says, it is unlawful for any person to knowingly possess material that includes a minor engaging in 1, sexual activity, or 2, simulated sexual activity that is patently offensive. So, and then of course, like all laws, there's 5 more paragraphs of things. So we probably need to get, I would be more comfortable if we got some legal, actual legal advice and interpretation on where is the line, right? So this doesn't have what I would call explicit, I would agree, there's not explicit images. So where is that line? Is there a line? Is the law any image of or narrative description of minors engaging in sexual activity? That would be hard for me to believe that that's the line. So I think that we should get some kind of more legal opinion on where that line exists. So, and that would be, in my mind, educational about whether it's removed or moved to the adult section, and then left to adults to check out, to decide to use if they want to use that as an educational tool for them and their children.
With respect to that opinion, if a picture of a child in a bathtub is going over the line, we're in a lot of trouble, I think. So I'd like to move that we do accept staff's recommendation to move this to an adult section.
Okay. Any other comments for us for a second?
When I reviewed the book, yes, there are illustrations of genitalia. I didn't think they were as outrageous as the 3 books last time. I do not recall, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I do not recall in this book the advice to take selfies and post them to the internet. If that advice were in this book, like last time, I would vote that we remove it. But I do not recall seeing that in this book. And I guess putting it in the adult section So a parent can decide if they want to use this. I'll lean towards that.
Okay. We do have a motion to accept staff. We have more conversation or second?
I tend to agree with Mr. Dodd and Ms. Wells. But I do think Cody brings up a good point. It probably would be good to have Trey Harvey or somebody at the state give us some heading to kind of clarify things going forward. That way we know that, hey, this is the line, and maybe if Mr. Harvey gives us some kind of opinion, says, hey, you got to get rid of it totally and not just move it to reclassification, maybe that is a further conversation later down the road.
I've been it through twice, and because it was a little fuzzy to me. Now, I actually thought it was an educational resource. The note in the front, as Ms. Wells said, indicated for that purpose, it warned parents to not, just stop at any point. I guess my clarification is the law that Cody mentioned, that it does picture a child engaging in an act, whether I want my child to be informed of that or not. Taking all the emotion out of it, just looking at it from a legalistic perspective. We don't know whether that image of that child in that act, if it would fail under that law. Again, I'm not putting in my personal opinions or emotions into this, just does it fall under that law? I truly don't know, which is why I read it through twice. So I wish I had a little bit more information, or somebody else to pass the buck to, possibly Trey, who, yes, I would rather hold off on it, because I personally was going to abstain because I wasn't sure I was interpreting the law correctly.
Motion to defer.
I think we have to deal with the first motion first. So, if there is no second, then it dies, and we deal with the second.
I'm going to reluctantly go ahead and second your motion. And I've tried to take this, my personal opinion, out of this equation and look at it from what I felt we are tasked by the letter of the law. And I'm not sure we're going to find any politician respectful of Mr. Harvey that's going to give us any more advice than what they've all given us already. And I think that's sort of what they're expecting us to do, is to sign for ourselves. And I think last month it was pretty clear on some of the books. This one here, I don't think it kind of meets some of the standard that we had on the last one. And so in this case, I'm gonna sign on being cautious, if you want to put it that way, but accept the second to move it to the adult section. I think that should be done after the juvenile card activation, though, has been done.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
I think that moving into those adult section is a good idea, but at the same time, I'm with Cody. I really think that we always will need some sort of advice. And have that into perspective, I really want to send you in for that.
Okay. So I think this particular vote will do roll call. There's enough back and forth, so I'm not sure if everyone's ready. So we need to vote on the motion that's on the table, and then we'll see how that proceeds. So we'll start at the left here with Dina. How do you vote to accept staff's comments? I'm sorry, to accept a reclassification of the vote. That's the motion that's on the table and that's been seconded. So I need you to vote on whether or not you want to accept staff's comments or you want to not accept staff's comments, and I guess remove or whatever.
I believe in it, but I want to abstain.
Okay. Cody?
I'll vote yes.
Corey?
Aye.
Aye. Yes. You say it, so we have it. Or no, or abstain. Yep, the motion is that we accept staff's recommendation of reclassifying this to adults. And that motion is second. Okay.
Yes, to accept staff's recommendation.
That is 6 yeses, 2 abstain. motion passes. Now, to Tim and Cody's comments, I didn't want to interject in the middle of the vote, but I agree with both of you. I agree with what you said, and I also agree with Tim. Keeping in mind that the state has to write a law that fits 92 counties, 377 municipalities, and so they're going to leave some subjectivity into those laws so that each community can interpret them for themselves, or at least add their community standards, right? And I think that's what we'll get back from them. I'm perfectly willing to ask and seek and see, but I agree with Tim. I don't think we're going to get this side of the line or that side of the line. I think we're going to get the law is what the law is, and you guys have to interpret and make a decision based on your community standards and requirements.
It might be more productive to actually talk to the people who would be prosecuting this law, to ask the district attorney or the sheriff's office, hey, give us some guidance here. Like, is this prosecutable, child pornography? I know that the county in Murray County, the library system got a letter from their district attorney giving them some clarity, not 100% clarity, but giving them some clarity. So maybe that would be something we could, ask them for is, hey, help us navigate this water a little bit. If they say, oh no, that's not something that would be prosecuted, then that gives us some guidance. If they say, oh well, actually that's something we would prosecute, that's something we would want to know.
Okay.
So I don't know. Just
So a little clarity before we get done with this meeting, I guess, is how do we move forward with this, right? Each municipality, Murfreesboro, the county, I don't know about you, but Smyrna definitely has on-staff attorneys. We could obviously ask them, probably ask
name Christian.
I was thinking of a guy that works for Joe Direct, I couldn't think of his name. Oh, Eric. Yeah, Eric Tennessee, yeah. I could ask Mr. Beach, we could even ask town manager, he's an attorney, right? I don't know if that's gonna give us everything we want. I don't know, Kate, if that's something that we could get some help with from the state. Maybe just clarify a few things in the law if we send specific questions. Somebody who gets some answers to questions. They may not be able to, but I don't even know who to reach out to get Trey or somebody to weigh in.
Jamie Ritter, the state library in our office, would be happy to serve with us if he can for you, but like you were saying, it is kind of up to the board's recommendation, but he'd be happy to do that.
Robin?
He can get more information.
Going on what you were saying with trying to approach the state, whether it's the serious side, James, we have to realize there was a law passed 2 years ago that we're dealing with right now. No one knew about it until 2 months ago, basically. So that tells me if we're looking for guidance from the state, we're not going to get it.
I think you're probably 100% correct, but I don't think it hurts for us to ask and see if we can. And if we've done that and we don't have it, the next time we're in this room and there's questions, we can say, the guidance is what we have. That's nothing or something, right? It's what we have. Go ahead.
I'm going to tackle in a few weeks, and Jamie says that's like the priority on the docket, is to discuss all of these legal issues. So maybe in a couple of weeks I'll have some more clarification. He also forwarded a letter from the district attorney. He basically said, tread softly, as in, I don't know. So tread softly.
That's kind of the feedback I've gotten from some of the questions I've asked the city attorneys is, it's not a case they would want to have to go to court to prosecute, even if it is prosecutable. It may not be a winnable case, right? And so he was like, I'm not sure either. He said, just be careful. And so I think that's where, Raleigh, your point, getting clarification or asking for assistance, that shows that we're taking an initiative to try to do the right thing and follow the state law as close as we can and get clarification when we have questions. And if we have that on record and we have that in our files, then that also protects the library system and the library board on future decisions. Truly, the follow the law as best we can. Kind of goes back to the conversation we had earlier. It shows that we're making that change. I did want to comment one thing on the library card agreement. I really appreciate staff moving forward with that. I think you guys are, though it wasn't necessarily something you wanted to do, I understand that you kind of embraced it and that you come up with some ideas about how the card should look different visually. And I really think that's going to go a long way to help ease a lot of minds in the community about what we're doing as far as controlling food. Also, I believe that gives us the flexibility to do, like we did tonight, reclassify a book to adult where it's appropriate and not have, with the new card, we would have the security that the system is not going to allow you to check that book out and continue to grab it on the shelf. I think that helps us keep books on the shelves in the library available rather than just simply saying, no, it can't be there. So I appreciate that effort, and I appreciate the work y'all put into that. Look forward to October. Is there anything else from the board? If there is not, stay adjourned. Thank you. Yeah, the October meeting will be in this room again, just like this one. I think we're scheduled here October, and that's it. December, I think we're going to talk about the council chambers and then in February returning to the final. All right, thank you.
Hey everybody, so that's it. Both books stay. Queen Charlotte stays. The other book is being moved from to the adult section. So that's it. Next meeting is in October. Look for more updates on our Facebook group.